So thank you, Sweelin, for giving me the opportunity to be discussing here, and of course also thank you for the three presenters for their very interesting presentations. Well, in the due time, I have seen the work of all three developing, and I really like to see how it is coming to some concrete insights. I won't go into detail in discussing the individual presentations, although I will make some remarks on and responses to things that have been said. But I would like to just address some main question. And basically, if we are talking about adopting and adapting lesson study, the question is, what are we adopting exactly, and why should we adapt? What are the main reasons for adapting it to a specific context? And the main questions here are indeed, why adapting it, why adapting, and how should we do this? And are there some barriers or insights that we need to take into account? And I'll try to go into these questions a little bit. Oh, am I? And first of all, why adopting lesson study? Why do this in the first place? And well, my basic answer could be because lesson study is great. It has proven to be in various contexts, in various countries, a very effective way for teacher professional development, but also for studying, student learning, as part of professional development, but also as in research projects. Mainly also because it helps you to involve teachers very closely in research for themselves, in larger research projects. And in my view, it also, and that was also visible in the slide that Sweelin showed in the introduction, it helps you to link theoretical knowledge from the lab, from the places where we study learning processes in detail, to educational practice. And I think that's one of the greatest values of lesson study, and one reason why we all should be trying to use it in one way or another. But then the question is, what are we exactly adopting? And or another, phrase another way, what do we count as lesson study? And sometimes you see a tendency to take the Japanese model as the original form of lesson study, and that we should try to adapt that as closely as possible. We also see, and that was also present in Fenna's presentation, that when you start with lesson study with a group of teachers or in a school, then there are some understandings in some problems in understanding what it really is. Why are we doing this? What does it mean? And for that, I liked basically two slides in both Sarah's and in Time's presentations, trying to extract the essential features of what lesson study is in terms of big ideas in Time's presentation, in its critical components in Sarah's presentation. And they both try to capture what are the essential elements of lesson study, and basically also what are the things that make it a success. One thing I do like also about Time's model is that below these 5 big ideas, we also have this idea of critical features and even implementations that give shape to the big ideas. So it doesn't remain at the abstract level. You are able to travel to more concrete levels below that. And it's very important to really understand what it is, and that was also clear in Fenna's presentation. If you don't have the right, or if you don't have a clear idea what lesson study is for, namely learning to understand student learning, I agree with her that is the closest way of catching the essential. Then you might start to think, well, it may not be the effort to design lessons in this very close and detailed way, or to spend so much time, or to study literature or invoke an expert in the lesson study process. So that understanding is very clear. And Yesterday, Tijmen in the group app from Lesson Study NL pointed us to a column of a well-known colleague, Paul Kirchner, who claimed that he saw that lesson study was not effective, but in the same column, he really exposed a very clear misunderstanding of what lesson study is. So that understanding is very important, but understanding also doesn't mean, in my view, that there is only one model for lesson study, namely the Japanese one. I think we should and we can go further. So considerations is, should we always use the Japanese model as a reference for lesson study? And what can we learn from different cultural differences? And one question I would have for Sarah is, and it's also inspired by some things that Svenna said, are countries the right unit of analysis for cultural differences? Is it, you stressed a lot differences between Japan and the Netherlands and maybe also the UK. But is it helpful to really characterize or maybe even stereotype countries in such a way and have this strong link to lesson study and come to general statements about countries? Maybe there are even within a culture, and maybe, and like Fenna showed, there are differences within the Dutch educational culture, even between schools within the culture. So my question would be, is it really the right level of analysis there? And also, if we take, I think if we stick too close to try to have a high fidelity implementation of the Japanese model, are we not going too far in trying to stick to the original and moving a bit away from having the big ideas and just focus on maybe more the surface features? And that leads to the question, how can we employ these strong points into Dutch schools? What can we learn from the Dutch school organization, way lessons are planned to implement those big ideas? I think that's there's still a lot of space to investigate there. So where we, and of course, where we in this, so this, I borrowed a Fenna slide, as you can see here. If you look at what we really need to arrive at is to try to build and to get lesson study into the woodworks of our school organization, into really the routine of building in lesson study as part of the professional development. And what you see here and what you see as a very often both a complaint and a factor is time. And in Sarah's presentation, it came into time commitment beyond working hours. And I think that you would be right that many Dutch teachers would not be prepared to do that a lot, although they work more hours than they usually paid for. And they complain about doing the administration and lesson preparation and grading and things like that. So spending extra time might be a hindrance. But on the other hand, if you really see, and that's what Fenna again said, if you see what it gives you as insight in student learning, it is worth the time investment. And here I'm also very much inspired by the work that Peter Dudley has done in Camden, London, where for the schools that he was a supervisor for, a manager for, he basically built in the time for the lesson study into the weekly schedules. So then the time becomes a tool to actually helping implement lesson study there. So how to move on from here? I think worldwide there are many lesson study practices that may or may not stay close to the Japanese original. And I think basically we should all see them as inspiration and trying to figure out in what way and to what extent they that they succeed in implementing the big ideas and what we can learn from them. I like this idea of having lots of inspiration and not a single model, single molds where we would like to fit a lesson study in. So I don't think there's one single right way of seeing lesson study, but I do see that I think that there are some big ideas that are essential to really make it work. And one of them is the research-oriented nature of lesson study, and to really engage teachers in doing their own research on student learning. And for that, we have to manage the time in creative ways, making part of the woodworks, make it part of the essential schedules in schools. And there's quite a lot of work to do for school management to bring that into the culture of the school. And in the end, I think that will lead us to that we will be able to find practice implementations for specific context, also depending on cultural context, but also many other practical considerations that are in place. So that ends my discussion. And I hope that will inspire some more questions and answers in further discussion. Thank you.